Mirco, my name is Ellen and I will be correcting these essays for you. I'm very happy to see that you have begun the course and that you're preparing for IELTS with us and that you're, of course, writing your first essays for us. So great job. Let's take a look and see what you wrote here. This is the essay about whether schools should be more more entertaining or not. So let's see what you wrote about this. Various citizens believe that the education system is too boring and think their children should be more entertained at school, while others believe that school is supposed to be first and almost about education. In my opinion, schools should be interesting and funny because the pupils are more likely to learn something, whereas in a only education focused school, that will be the case. Okay. In this essay, the results of a study of the University of Zurich will be compared to experiences of the schools in Bern to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay. For the most part, this was good. All right, you definitely have the right idea here, but there are a few things I want to change in terms of your vocabulary, in terms of your grammar, in terms of your spelling and punctuation. Okay, so that's where I saw some errors. So I just want to go through this paragraph with you one more time and then correct some of those. So first of all, here you meant to with a double O. Okay, and it's important because they're two different words, all right, and they're used differently. So make sure you spell them right. So let's look at that again. Various citizens believe that the education system is too boring and think their children should be more entertained at school. Now, this should have continued in one sentence because this is not a sentence on its own. It needs to be attached to something that shows contrast. So you didn't need a full stop here. You just needed a comma and then a lowercase w. So while others believe that school is supposed to be not first and almost, but first and foremost about education. All right, so vocabulary error there. In my opinion, comma, schools should be interesting, and I didn't really like this word funny. It's a little too informal. It's a little too elementary, and so I would have liked something maybe a little more academic sounding and maybe a little more formal. So let's try something different. Let's try something like, in my opinion, schools should be interesting as well as enjoyable, or schools should be interesting as well as, I don't know, yeah, I mean, enjoyable, delightful. You could have just used the word, honestly, entertaining. You used it once here as entertained, but I kind of would have been okay with this because this is really what we're talking about. All right. Because the pupils are more likely to learn something, whereas in an, because you have a vowel here, an only education focused with one S here, school, that will not be the case. All right, so we've got a couple problems there. In this essay, comma, the results of a study from the University of Zurich will be compared to experiences from, again, the schools in Bern to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Now, what do I want to tell you about this introduction other than, the fact that we corrected some mistakes? It's really important to aim for really high accuracy here because essentially, your introduction is the examiner's first impression of your writing, and the examiner will be looking at this introduction to think to him or herself, well, where is this student? Is the student a 6? Is the student a 7? And so, or is the student even a 5, perhaps? So you really want there to be a lot of accuracy here to make a good impression, which will overall influence the examiner one way or another towards your writing. Okay? I mean, it's not going to be the final score. It's not going to determine everything, but it will kind of set the examiner's mind in a particular direction. Okay? So let's move on. Firstly, I agree that schools must be more exciting for the children. When children are bored in school, they lose with one O, because you just wrote loose, totally different word. They lose interest in education, and this will lead to worse grades. A recent study from the University of Zurich showed that pupils which had a more entertaining time at school. A recent study from the University of Zurich showed that pupils which had a more entertaining time at school are more likely to learn and invest time for education outside school. Finally, the study showed a 20% higher average grade of the pupils compared to similar pupils with a standard education. Therefore, it is clear, no comma here, that a more exciting education increases, with an S, grades, not just one grade, but grades and the satisfaction of the children. Okay, it's fine. Again, there were some issues with punctuation, but I liked a lot of it. I want to see in future essays, I don't know if maybe it's just because it's your first one and you're still getting accustomed to the template, but I would like to see these sentences flow a little better in future essays. They just needed to be a little better linked. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not suggesting that you have a lot of these firstly, secondly, furthermore, moreovers. I don't mean that at all. But here, for example, take a look at this. Firstly, I agree that schools must be more exciting for children. This is because when children are bored in school, they lose interest in education, and this will lead to worse grades. Okay, so just this is because it links better to the previous sentence. Okay, so I wanted to see a little bit more of that in this paragraph. Let's move on. Okay, now look at this. Okay, fine. Secondly, I disagree that school only has, this is awkward here. The whole thing is awkward, I'm afraid, Mirco. So, secondly, I disagree that the school has only the education purpose. All right, now here's how I would rewrite this. Secondly, I disagree that schools should focus on education only. All right, there's not a big difference there, but it does certainly sound better. Children are 30% of their young lives with a V in school, so they demand to get trained in diverse skills. Okay. Local schools in Bern tried a new school model called Creative Schedule with multiple entertaining and fun, not funny, fun components. The pupils were excited. The teachers, though, get more exhausted and they lost the focus on education, as the leaders of the test month said. Okay. So now I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused because I don't understand what the central idea of this is. Okay, now you told us here that you think schools should be more entertaining and fun and interesting and so forth. You had a whole paragraph about that here. Okay, you said yes, schools should be more exciting. And then here you said, I disagree that schools should be just educational. So essentially you're arguing the same side here. That's what we understand. But then you changed the focus here when you started talking about the teachers. So you said that teachers got exhausted and they lost focus. So that's not really relevant to this. That's not arguing your point. That's arguing against your point. So yeah, the students thought it was great, but the teachers are beat, they're exhausted. So this does not help you. This does not create a central idea which is carried throughout the paragraph. All of a sudden you've just kind of switched it, and instead of talking about the positives of this kind of education, all of a sudden you're talking about the negative here. So this sentence for me really, really, really need to be replaced with something else. Okay, and I'll make some suggestions. Now, the other problem with this paragraph is it was very choppy, and I didn't think in general that the ideas were well linked. So here you said, I disagree that school should focus on education only. And that's fine, but then you needed to talk about why it shouldn't focus on education only. So there were a lot of things you could have said here. You could have talked about how it has been found that students that learn in this type of environment retain 30% less information than students in schools that incorporate entertaining methods. You could have talked about how students in these types of environments have been found to be less motivated, and this perhaps leads to depression. I don't know. It's a little dramatic, but I think you understand what I mean. You need to talk about why you are against this education only kind of school. Okay? No, look at this. This kind of sentence, really, really choppy. It's tiny. It should have been linked to something bigger. So let's take a look at this. I mean, we already discussed that this paragraph needs to be rewritten, but since you wrote a sentence like this, I want to talk about how you could have fixed it. So local schools in Bern tried a new school model with multiple entertaining and funny components, which caused students to be excited, or which excited students. Okay, so that kind of thing is necessary. None of these little tiny paragraphs, okay, sentences. Let's look at your next paragraph. To conclude, from the arguments and examples given, comma, I firmly believe that an entertaining school day for children is more important than an only education fixed school. I don't like this word fixed. This is, not that. We don't use contractions in IELTS, not in task 2 at least. This is because of a higher grade of the pupils when they are interested in education. In the future, it is predicted that more schools will change their schedules to a more entertaining education. All right, this is a little awkward. Will change their schedules to incorporate more entertainment. That would have sounded a lot better. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of this. Some grammar, some vocabulary, and then here, of course, some task achievement was what we talked about. Okay, so let's stop with this essay and go on to your next one. All right, so here we've got the essay about enjoyable activities with a child. Let's see what you wrote here. A number of people, believe that doing enjoyable activities with children increases the children's skills and creativity. Again, same sentence here, because it's the same thing with while and whereas. Whereas, again, one sentence, others believe that the development of creativity and other skills through reading is even greater. I personally believe that pupils gain more creativity and skills through activities because doing activities, the children are wider claimed than just by reading. All right, so here, what's going on? The grammar here was a little off. This didn't really make sense. I personally believe that pupils gain more creativity and skills through activities because through them, children are more engaged than just by reading. Okay, so there were a couple of problems there. I also thought that some of the language here was a little repetitive, and so you really want to be careful about this. Look, doing enjoyable activities, skills and creativity, creativity and skills, creativity and skills, activities, activities. All right, so really try to vary this up a little bit. Try to use different words. Try to maybe use some cohesion instead. All right, I tried doing that before by doing these. Okay, that was one way to do it. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's move on. Firstly, a local school in Zurich tried an experiment. They have a class of pupils which had a more practical education than regular children. The schedule was full of activities paired with the normal lessons. For example, they have a time of playing Lego before they have to write an essay. The results of this experiment was an increase of the creativity and mechanical skills compared to children with regular schedules. Through playing with Lego and building caves for their pets, where did that come in here? Okay. They gained more mechanical skills and made big use of their logical thinking. Therefore, it is proven that activities develop children's skills and creativity. Okay, so I'm glad that you had a very solid example of this. That's good. but it overwhelmed this paragraph a little too much, okay? And so we didn't really know where you were going with this. Do you understand what I mean? So, all right, you talked about the result was an increase in creativity, but then you didn't really tell us what your point was until the very, very end of your paragraph. And that's something I don't want you to get in the habit of doing. This should have been very clear from the beginning of the paragraph. This is all about coherence and cohesion. It's extremely important that the central idea of each paragraph is clear throughout that paragraph. And that didn't happen here. I didn't really know what your central idea was until the very end. Okay? So you needed to reorganize this paragraph. I'd like to see you using the template a little more to help you kind of guide you how to do this, okay? All right, so let's look at this a little further. You also kind of go back and forth through their tenses. Sometimes you're in present tense, sometimes you're in past, and it's probably a good idea to be consistent. So, firstly, the local school in Zurich tried an experiment. They had a class of pupils which had more practical education than regular children. The schedule was full of activities paired with the normal lessons. For example, comma, they had, not really a time of playing Lego. They had a period in which they played Lego before they had to write an essay. The results of this experiment was an increase in creativity and mechanical skills. All right, now you see this whole thing is like really long, and we don't know the point you're trying to get to. So it really needed to be reorganized, okay? All right, let's move on. Secondly, comma, and after firstly, comma too. Secondly, comma, I believe that reading is also important, but the benefits are not, because again, no contractions, this great for everyone. As a study from Harvard University showed, no, all right, grammatically this is wrong. This probably should all be one sentence. Let's look at it one more time. Secondly, comma, I believe that reading is also important, but the benefits are not this great for everyone, as a study from Harvard University showed. No, that doesn't work either. I'm trying to fix it, but I'm having a little difficulty here. You know what it is? You just need to get rid of this as, and then you're okay. So take a look at this. A study from Harvard University showed increased creativity of children who read at a young age. Important, though, is to mention that the average boy only had an increase of creativity of 5%, while girls had an increase of nearly 20%. Okay, I don't know why you mentioned this. Therefore, we see that both reading and doing activities increase creativity and skills. Okay, I don't know why you wrote this thing about the boys and the girls. That's really unclear to me. I do think you should have developed this a little bit more. Okay, and again, I feel like you've really overwhelmed this paragraph with examples without really providing ideas. So it should be, I think this is why I think this. Look at the example I'm going to give you to support why I think this. Or look at the explanation I'm going to give you to explain why I think this. Okay, but you can see that in the beginning there's an idea there which is then supported. The idea is not to make the support the entire paragraph, okay? All right, so let's move on. Finally, comma, it can be said that reading is a great way to develop a child's creativity and skills. However, because we don't start sentences with but, however, if an equal development of skills and creativity of boys and girls is asked, I don't understand that, is asked, doing activities with pupils is the better way to go. This is a little too idiomatic, it's a little too conversational, too informal. This is proven by an example of the local school in Zurich and a study made by Harvard University. Okay, you don't want to bring this up again. You've already mentioned it. You mentioned it in your introduction. You mentioned it in both of your paragraphs. Here, you just want to read, you want to leave the reader with like a thought-provoking sentence, some sort of prediction for the future. So here it would have been really a much better idea to just say, in the future, more schools will try to incorporate such methods in order to promote these skills in students. Okay, that would be fine. That would be fine. All right, so the next thing I want you to do now, Mirco, is I want you to take these essays, I want you to correct them based on the suggestions in this video. Send those corrections back to us. Also, send us your error correction list, so write down the mistakes and then the correct version next to each mistake. You want to add to that with every essay you get back from us. It's for you to learn from so that you can, you know, stop making some of the same mistakes over and over. And then I want you to write your new set of essays, okay? Incorporating everything you've been learning in the course and in these videos. So go ahead, get that started, and let's meet back here with your next set. Good luck. Hi there, Mirco.